Okay, KB and Flint Spall, I made this video for you in response. And again, brother, not trying to contradict you in any way. I'm just not the typical yes man, brother. Again, these points that I have laid out in front of you have come from one of the most well-known, biggest mid-archaic Benton sites in Middle Tennessee. And again, just showing you all the different styles. We got bottlenecks. We've got kind of more of like not a wide base, like the narrow base. We got buzzard roost. We got the little Benton blade. We got the big buzzard roost blade. And again, I just wanted to kind of show you what is, of course, some very, very, very fine examples of buzzard roost, not quite as big as KB's. KB's has got a smoker freaking buzzard roost. But again, found all around the same area. And definitely made by the same culture. So we're not talking about anything different than KB brought up here. But these right here have no beveling, and very, very little as far as, very slight bevel. There you go. Very slight bevel on the buzz. No diagonal parallel flaking. This thing has gotten way too far away from what is an Elk River. And Flint Spall, I'm not trying to knock you, brother, but by your definition of a characteristic, time frames don't matter, and I would completely agree, but characteristics don't matter necessarily either, because by your characteristic, here's a Benton from the same mid-archaic area. Extremely, extremely diagonal parallel. Not only is it diagonal parallel, it's got a mean left hand, not even a left hand, but a mean bevel on that sucker. And again, this thing right here is definitely lightly ground. It's not heavy ground, not a super dovetail polish, but it has all the diagonal flaking, all the twists that you define as an Elk River, but mid-archaic Benton. I don't have the one I recently found with Josie Wales, but it again is further removed from this one because it doesn't have the diagonal flaking. Here again, we got the diagonal flaking, we got the super twist. We got the leaned blade, like you said, one blade leans to a flat side. Here's your flat side. We do have light grinding on this base, not heavy, but again, extreme diagonal parallel flaking. Here's a killer example right here. Bottleneck Benton, not Elk River. You could see the twist on that thing. And you can see it. Again, diagonal parallel. And then once you start getting away from these early bottlenecks, which is kind of what I was telling you, as far as you probably finding more of, and again, not hating, the super hard polished piece you have is most likely a firm Elk River, but at some point it transitioned to a mid-archaic point that still kept some of the left hand bevel, still kept some of the diagonal flaking, which is present on these three pieces right here. This big buzzard roost blade, no diagonal parallel. Again, it's part of these buzzard roosts. They get too far down. The ceremonial blades, the narrow base blades, the Warritos, the Tupelo, not Tupelos, excuse me. Either way, all the Bentons, once they get far enough away from what is the original Elk River, of course, they don't have the same characteristics, but the characteristics nonetheless, and which is my point to you, Flint Spall, nonetheless do not matter because it carries over into the Benton culture. It's really the Elk River culture that you're seeing extrapolated through large period of time that slowly transitions and changes into its own style, its own form, all the way down to the super ceremonial blades. But either way, again, there are plenty of examples of Bentons with twists, diagonal flaking, and grinding on that base. And by your definition, this is an Elk River. By your definition, this is an Elk River. By your definition, this is an Elk River. And then, okay, so we get into these. And again, like I said, I almost call them pickwicks. Once you have the similar style, we got twisted blades, which you would call an Elk River. Not quite the best example of diagonal parallel, and not all examples, like I said, have it on them. But again, we get into these more twisted, more looking like a pickwick point, a little thicker, a little chunky girl on that one. But again, from the same area. And then here's a couple would be considered more almost like regular bottlenecks, definitely more hard Benton characteristics with no beveling. A little damage up there you can see, but no beveling. And again, This one right here, in my opinion, the Benton bottleneck evolved into what is the Table Rock or Mud Creek / like almost Epps Point. It definitely transitioned down past this into the late Archaic, and I think this is the connection piece to it from what is a major Benton area. And again, here's another little bottleneck, and then we got the 3 buzzard roosts right here. And again, I was just busting out what was the mid-Archaic, a lot of the mid-Archaic / late Archaic case, to show what is plenty of examples. Here's 3 fine examples of a Benton that is diagonal flake, parallel diagonal, and twisted. So if time frames don't matter, neither necessarily does the characteristics. Basal styles change, characteristics can stay the same, whether one grinds it, whether one doesn't grind it, whether one uses diagonal flaking, whether they don't use diagonal flaking. And again, you know, like I said, there are definitely some hard Elk River examples in your collection, but by the definition, these 3 would be as well. And, you know, just knowing the site that they came from, it very well could be. Not knocking you, and again, just trying to share what is my perspective on the subject. Which, KB, you had a great video, and Flint Spall, you had an exceptional video, brother, with all kinds of information, and I learned a lot from it. But again, just because you know, basal styles change or flaking style changes or whatever, doesn't necessarily mean it's not a Benton or it's not an Elk River. Like you said, Flint Spall, it is in the eye of the beholder. And if you want to call them Elk Rivers, brother, I'm not gonna try and stop you. They're right there at that time frame. But again, there's probably transitional pieces that were evolving into a Benton point. And I would almost bet my left nut you find Bentons on that site. Especially if you find Elk Rivers. But again, just wanted to share, put my little 2 cents in. Not that it matters, take it with a grain of salt, boys. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of open up what was a cool discussion. And Flint Spall, thank you so much for being a good sport about it, brother. KB, you too. Here I wanted to show you this. This was one of my most viewed videos. I let my son hold. I let my kids 4 and 3 hold all my arrowheads. I find it very, very neat to let them touch it, but you can see what happened when I let my son hold it. He had to drop it and broke that tip on a almost 4-inch Benton blade right there, but that's okay. And again, you can see the flaking. Definitely hard Benton right there. Definitely part of the buzzard roost, which don't show any of the characteristics of an Elk River. But yeah, super informative video, Flint Spall. Thank you so much. Just wanted to kind of throw out my own video real quick. Sorry for the noise, sorry for the wind. Just got home from work and wanted to throw something out before it got too late to respond to your video, brother. KB, Kevin, thank y'all so much. Consider it a Rock Talk video. And yeah, boys. Till the next one. See ya.